To our first topic in the spotlight, 7 Hong Kong policemen have been sentenced to 2 years each for beating a protester during the 2014 Occupy Central rallies. The sentence was announced last week as opposing groups gathered outside the courtroom to protest in support of and against the verdict. Exactly what happened? Let's watch this first.
The verdict came after the police were convicted earlier of assault causing actual bodily harm for an attack on an activist surnamed Zhang following his arrest. The incident in this case took place more than 2 years ago during the Occupy Central demonstrations, which have deeply scarred the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region and made some worry about its stability. The rallies have also added enormously to pressure on the police to maintain Hong Kong's rule of law, but their misconduct sent the opposite message to what they're trying to preserve. Online and local TV video clips show what happened that day. According to a prosecution case last year, Zhang splashed smelly liquid on police as they tried to clear demonstrators from a tunnel at that time. Zhang himself was later sentenced to 5 weeks in prison for assaulting and resisting officers. In the policeman's case, the officers were found to have carried Zhang by his arms and legs to behind a park building where they dumped him on the ground and assaulted him. The judge said 5 officers stabbed, stamped, and kicked Zhang, while 2 others watched. The policeman's case was brought to court last June and has since sparked strong and mixed social reactions.
For Zhang's aggressive behavior, police could arrest him and take him to court, but they had no right to take him into a corner with his hands and feet bound and beat him. That's deliberately breaking the law. Police are always asked to bear everything patiently. Some people may resist arrest and even attack police, but legal penalties for them are light and even non-existent. Is that fair?
When I was with the police, residents honored and respected us, but now they are so hostile. The 7 policemen were immediately arrested and jailed. That's not fair. Usually lawbreakers can seek bail and appeal.
For more insight, I'm joined by Ting Wang Casey, a barrister at law and executive counsellor of the China-Australia Legal Exchange Foundation. Casey, thank you very much for joining me today. Now, all 7 of the Hong Kong police officers have been jailed for 2 sentences. Could you explain to us first what are the reasons behind the judge's sentencing?
Actually, first of all, I'm very glad to join tonight's program, Liu Xin. Actually, I have the judge's reason for sentence with me. Let me refer to the judgment and to ensure accuracy. The main reasons is the operation of the doctrine, common law doctrine of joint enterprise. And the rule of joint enterprise means this rule imputes the criminal liability to all participants in a joint enterprise and for all their resulting offenses. And other reasons are, first, they are all serving police officers on duty. Secondly, the series of the injury sustained by Mr. Zhang. And thirdly, Mr. Zhang was handcuffed behind his back. He was effectively a defenseless individual. And lastly, the damage to Hong Kong's reputation. Those are the main reasons, Liu Xin.
Now, we know that last year Mr. Tang, the protagonist of the incident, was also sentenced 5 weeks, and he was found guilty of attacking and resisting officer on the same evening, but he was accused of splashing an unknown liquid on police and was handed a 5-week sentence. What are the reasons behind the judge's sentencing in that case, and could we compare these 2 sentences?
First, he was watching from high positions above the road in Central, and when Hong Kong police advanced into a tunnel to try to clear out the protesters. And second point is he was pouring the unknown liquid onto the police below. And that material time, Mr. Zhang, was also not in possession of his Hong Kong identity cards. So those points, the totality view of those points indicate that he had committed a very serious offense against the police force in Hong Kong. And in comparison with the 7 police officers' sentence, Mr. Zhang's he was charged with 2 offenses, which are quite different from police charges. And different criminal offenses have their respective different criminal sanctions. I would say these like cases should not be treated alike, and there is no meaningful comparisons to make any comparison between them.
Right now, the chief of the Hong Kong Police, Commissioner Stephen Low, has indicated that the 7 policemen might appeal or are getting ready to appeal. What would happen then?
Actually, it really depends on the decision of those police officers whether or not to launch an appeal against their verdict. Actually, and now I don't have a crystal ball to say what's the possible impact. However, if a defendant, if a police officer appeal against sentence, that would provide the Court of Appeal in Hong Kong a second chance to revisit the police sentence. And that the main ground is that the sentence of 2 years in immediate custodial sentence is manifestly excessive. And if the police officers appeal against conviction, then the judges in the Court of Appeal would have to look into the entire trial proceeding, and that is much more complicated appeal procedure.
Yes.
So that is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Lastly, one of the things that many people on the mainland are asking is why there are so many foreign judges in Hong Kong. And what is the background here, very briefly? Are we seeing the increased percentage of foreign judges in Hong Kong over the past 20 years, or things have been steady? Very briefly, please.
Let's start from the very top to the Court of Final Appeal. According to Basic Law, Article 82, that the Court of Final Appeal can invite foreign judges to sit in the Court of Final Appeal to hear Hong Kong cases. And further down to the hierarchy, we can see the Basic Law Article number 92. Other judges can be recruited in accordance with their professional and judicial experience. And also there's another avenue that foreigners in Hong Kong who have gained the Hong Kong citizenship, they can, after a few years, they can apply to the judiciary and they can become a judge at the bench. So those avenues are possibility that they can come to Hong Kong to practice as a judge. So that is quite a lot of possibilities that they can come. Yes.
Yes. Thank you very much, Casey, joining us from Hong Kong. That was Ting Wan Casey. Now, to understand the situation from a different perspective, we are also joined in Hong Kong by Lee Si-ing, convener of the Alliance in Support of Our Police Force. Lee Si-ing, thank you very much for joining us today. First of all, how did you feel about the sentence when it was handed down that all of these police officers were given 2 years each for what they did?
For me to say the sentencing is really not fair, and we are shocked, we are sad, and of course some of the supporters, they even cried and feeling heartache. And so, but right now we all know that they are filing for an appeal. So we will give our full support and blessings for the 7 amazing policemen.
Now, some people are saying the sentencing, contrary to what you just said, some people believe the sentencing was fair because the policemen, as enforcement of the law, they should respect the law themselves. What is your reaction to that?
But we have to look into the situation, the reality. At that time, it was during the period of Occupy Central. And our policemen, they were under tremendous pressure. Limited resources, long working hours, and you can see the riotous protesters, talking about Ken Tsang, pouring those smelly liquid, or we came to know that maybe urine, and this is really bad and impolite, and this is something that we understand how come the policemen reacted in this way. Mm-hmm. And
yes.
But one thing that we have to remember is yes.
Yes, please go ahead and tell us
Hello?
what you want us to remember.
Okay. But one thing we have to remember is at that time they are not only occupying Central together with Mong Kok and Causeway Bay. And don't forget, at that time, a lot of protesters, they were reacted like crazy people, and they fought with the policemen, and I think everybody knows that after the period of time, Hong Kong was split into two color zones, yellow and blue.
Mm-hmm. Now, do you think the sentence will make it increasingly difficult for policemen in Hong Kong to do their job in the future?
Exactly. I think the answer is yes. And so we have to support the Hong Kong police force, and we urge the government to supply sufficient resources and to encourage and to raise the morale of the team.
And I understand, lastly but briefly, that you have sent a petition letter to the chief executive. What was the message in that, and what are you trying to achieve?
Yes, we presented a letter to our chief executive, Leung Chun-ying, yesterday afternoon, and to urge he used the authority to exercise according to the Basic Law of Hong Kong, Article 48, Paragraph 12, to pardon the 7 policemen from jail. And so this is only our first step, and we hope that Leung Chun-ying will exercise his rights, and if he fails or he does not want to exercise this authority, I think the police supporters and a lot of people in Hong Kong will be feeling very upset, because it will further damage the morale of the police team.
Thank you very much, Lee Hsien, convener of the Alliance in Support of the Police Force, from joining us in Hong Kong. Now, there has been much controversy over the length of the sentences handed down to these 7 police officers. There have also been many questions asked about the fact that the convicting judge was British, which some say that this case would not have been so controversial if the sentences had been handed down by a Chinese judge. But the law is the law, whether or not you support the fact that Hong Kong Basic Law still allows foreign judges to preside in its courts. The fact is that they are legally allowed to do so. So let's wait for the final verdict. Indeed, if the 7 policemen decide to appeal for their sentence, and at the same time, we should also let the legal system in Hong Kong decide what the ultimate sentence should be. But lastly, many are asking the question of why foreign judges still make up the majority of judges in Hong Kong 20 years after its handover to China.